And now, the survival show that once survived a 70s motorcycle in the 90s. In this episode, we'll discuss the state of prepping and the preparedness community. What the heck is really going on out there? Howdy, and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 204. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. A funny story for you today that involves me learning to ride a motorcycle. It may illustrate some of what's going on in the preparedness community right now. And this might take a while, but you'll get a laugh and understand the point towards the end. I think the funny thing is I've not told this story in years, and I don't think even Jason and Jonathan, I don't even think even my wife has ever heard this one. Part of the reason is it just has never come up. No one usually asks you how you got into riding motorcycles. But I think really probably the big reason is that there is a rather embarrassing part of this story where I nearly killed myself. So I think it kind of starts off like this. As a kid, I had several obsessions, but two of them in particular stand out for this story. One of them was the color green. Another one was motorcycles. There was another thing about bathing suits and frogs, but it's not really germane to the story. Anyway, my mom, as mothers do, never really liked the idea of motorcycles. So, of course, for obvious motherly reasons, that was not part of my childhood. I never got that motorcycle. Little Timmy got his Red Ryder BB gun. I never got my little motorcycle. So they didn't really play a part, but, then one day I grew up and I was a man and I could do as damn well I pleased, right? This was shortly after I graduated high school, shockingly, to do something stupid. And so I decided it was time to finally get that motorcycle. It became an obsession in the way that if you're a prepper, you become obsessed with guns and gear and survival scenarios and all kinds of other stuff. And I researched the heck out of motorcycles and riding gear and all kinds of stuff. And the motorcycle itself was the big purchase. So I started off by buying the easy stuff, helmets, boots, whatnot. That led me to a good old-fashioned biker shop, not a Harley dealership, a good old-fashioned biker shop. The kind you think you may not actually walk out of. It could just as well be a biker bar kind of biker shop. It was a pretty awesome little store. I miss that place. So a little after really becoming a regular there, I kind of quickly became friends with the owner. And through our conversations, which really mostly consisted of me asking 10 million newbie questions, he suggested that I start off with a beater bike and not buy the expensive Triumph motorcycle that I was fawning over, at least not at first. The idea was that it could be something that I could learn on, and if I dumped the bike, which he suggested would be inevitable, it wouldn't be a big deal. He then ended up offering to teach me to ride for a small fee. Basically, I'd meet him over at his house every morning for, I don't know, it was like a month or two or something like that, and he was really going to put me through the paces. But again, I was going to need a beater, mainly because he wasn't just going to teach me to ride, he was going to teach me to crash too. And that, of course, in my 19-year-old brain, just made it even more, the adventure even more exciting. So I set off on a quest to find this mythical beater. After weeks of looking through the newspaper, and for you kids out there, that was a physical newspaper with ink and everything that, the ink got on your hands and it smell of newspaper. Yeah, all right. I'll shut up now. Anyway, found the perfect specimen, and it was a 1975 Suzuki, I believe it was a 650, and I paid a whopping $500 for this thing. It was, it had this giant Chips style windscreen, like Chips the TV show. It was ugly as sin. It was perfect for what I needed it for. Basically, so ugly that if I heard it more, I wasn't going to care. And then I went to buy the bike. No clue how I was going to get this thing back home, right? Because again, I don't know how to ride a bike at this point. Like, no clue. Like, I'm not even really sure what does what in the way of levers and gears and no clue. Like, nothing. But, how hard could it be? There's only 3 things you really got to know how to work on it, right? Like, I'll figure it out. And the friend who was driving me was no voice of reason. I'm pretty sure he would have just laughed even harder if I had actually killed myself. One of the many reasons we're not friends anymore. As the saying goes, don't go stupid places with stupid people and do stupid things. So I meet this old man in front of his house, whatnot. We check out the bike and I buy it. Yeah, again, no clue how I'm going to get this thing home. So I asked him if he could give me a quick lesson. And he looked at me, but the funny part is somehow I ended up talking him into giving me some sort of crash course on how to ride a motorcycle. Seriously, between the 3 of us standing around there weren't 2 brain cells to rub together. Like somehow this seemed like it was a perfectly good idea to all of us at the time. Anyway, so he explains the basic operation of motorcycle, the basic mechanical operation of motorcycles, at least as much as he thought I needed to know. Me thinking, oh, this sounds very easy, I climb aboard my mighty, albeit ugly steed. I hit the gas as instructed. I go up the curb, up his yard, and fortunately, there was this tree that had more brains than the rest of us combined because it jumped out right in front of me and stopped me just before entering the man's house via his living room window. Amazingly, the only thing that was hurt was a bit of bark was knocked off the tree, and of course my pride was pretty well hurt at that point. I've got, an audience for my idiocy at this point. And part of that audience is going to be with me for some time to come and to laugh at me and bother me and remind me regularly of the incident. Anyway, so after the adrenaline wears off, I gave the man some more money to like something to repair his tree with, whatever that gunk is. And I arranged to have the bike towed to my new biker friend's bike shop. So now we're back to the bike shop. I start learning how to make repairs, for obvious reasons, to my new ugly daredevil baby. Then my riding lessons start. The first morning, my heart was in my throat. I was going a blazing 5 miles an hour on the grass. Woo! What a rush. I'm not kidding. It was seriously like one of the biggest rushes I've ever had in my life, excluding, the whole thing with the tree. But seriously, it was like, wow, this is amazing. I actually was like, this may be better than sex. It was just amazing. So not only was I was already obsessed, now I was truly hooked in. This is exciting. This is fun. Things progressed. I learned to ride. I learned to crash well. I learned to recover from skids and other perils of riding a motorcycle, and the adrenaline continued. It waned off a little bit, but for the most part, it was still very exciting every time I got onto that motorcycle. Then eventually I took my driver's test, right? That was kind of the whole point. And Kevin, my new biker buddy, let me take my bike away from his house. Obviously, I had shown poor judgment in the past, so he kept it till he felt like I was safe enough to be on the road with it. And so, I had graduation day. And as an aside, I used to keep this motorcycle at my friend, the idiot friend's apartment, because I still didn't want my mom to know that I was riding a motorcycle. But I was a man, damn it. And now I was a free man. Moving along. I rode this thing like every night for a couple of years. And at least once a week, I would take the bike over to my friend Kevin's shop, and I would work on my bike in his garage and hang out a little bit and all these other things. And then one day there was it was coming up on the time where I was about ready to get rid of it, and there was a guy that kind of came into the shop, and he was kind of in the same. He was in those early stages, and Kevin was like, "You need a beater." As it turns out, that guy out there in the garage has a beater, and I think he wants to sell it. So I parted with that, and then promptly went out and finally got my green motorcycle. My childhood fantasy is now complete. I continued to ride regularly for several more years. May have been about 10 years total that I really rode quite a bit. And then one day I just kind of stopped riding very often. The adrenaline was gone. It was kind of a hassle in the Texas heat to get out most times. And then there's always that weird portion of the year where it's cold and it's, nah, all right, I was being a whiny bitch about the whole thing. But really, it was like it just wasn't that exciting anymore, and that was really what had gotten me into it was the adrenaline and the excitement. And I don't think in my 20s and my 30s, early 30s, that I really appreciated riding for what it was. And then, of course, you get married, and you know, motorcycles are kind of a no-no for a while. Anyway, so then finally one day I just stopped riding the thing altogether in my early 30s, and it just sat in my garage with a trickle charger on it till finally one day I just decided, I'm not going to probably ride again until I'm in my 60s or something, and kids are grown, and who cares if I kill myself or something like that. So the progression of all of this is a lot like prepping. You get a bug, you research that thing to death, you go headlong into it, you become just crazy with it, you live it for a while, then one day it's just not as exciting anymore, and people fall off. That brings us to where we're at. There's much to do in different blogs and stuff like that about how the prepper community has dried up. I think one economic collapse, the blog said it was like a nuclear bomb had gone off in the prepper community. Conversely, there's been much to do about how liberals are buying up guns and coming into the prepper community in droves, and it's just crazy, and they're bringing man buns and exercising poor firearms safety discipline and in videos, and it's crazy. And everybody's all excited about it. And comically enough, right after Trump was elected, apparently Amazon sold out of the book 1984. Yeah, it was also in the what's popular section of Audible and of Apple TV movies and probably a whole bunch of other places. So people were freaking out. So which is it? Which is true? Are the die-hard old, fashion preppers going away, and are all these liberals coming in? And the truth is both, and sort of, and kinda, maybe, but not, is not. It's all being blown way out of proportion. What I can tell you is just from the ITRH download numbers alone, there was this very large, weird dip that started in the ITRH just download numbers around May of 2016. And at the time, we were going on season break, so I really didn't think much of it. And then over the summer, obviously, we do summer shorts and stuff around here, but it wasn't, I just wasn't paying attention. And then when I go back, we start back up in this new season, and I go back and look, I'm like, whoa, what's going on with the numbers here? Where, do I smell? Am I doing something wrong? Is this microphone on? What's going on here? And I started to hear from guests that this was going on everywhere. And then I started hearing from that some survival blogs were thinking of shutting it down and calling it quits. And some other podcasts were, none of the big ones, but some of the other ones, some of the smaller, newer podcasts were just going to hang it up, and they were done. And because there were no preppers listening or reading, or traffic was just dying everywhere. But then around January, so I guess right around the election, or the inauguration, rather, things started to bounce back to normal and started to go back to the growth curve that we were on before, and it was back to normal. I don't think that's necessarily to do with an influx of liberal preppers or anything like that. I think anyone and everyone I talk to that listens to the show has mentioned these things to me, especially in the Armada Facebook group. This has been a reoccurring discussion of, is everybody going away? Are you guys still there? And everybody's like, I'm still here. I don't know what they're talking about. So the reality is, I'm sure there were a lot of people that were mostly concerned about our previous president. And that's all that they got into prep for. And then when they thought their guy, I'm using air quotes, was in, they were out. And, conversely, somebody really gets worried about Trump and we've got an influx in. I don't think it's that big though. So anyway, I can't explain what really happened with that big dip. I don't know anyone who can actually explain what happens. I think all of the reasons for a dip in the community and in preparedness in general, I don't think anybody can actually answer. And I've read most of the articles, and every one of them, I'm like, no, your dates are off, and that's not. And based on your dates being off, the reason you're giving doesn't coincide with what boots on the ground, ground truth, what I know to be true from actually being in the community and talking to other people who are in the community and are pretty big names in the community and talk to other people in the community. Like that's not it. This is nonsense. So what's going on? I think it was just a dip. Like I said, I think it was people got kind of nervous and uncomfortable around elections and then they went away. But honestly, I just don't know. But I am here to say everything is kind of back to normal again. What I think has really happened, and I think let's put this into context for a second, and this is a cycle. And having been around all this long enough that I can actually have seen the cycle come and go, I'll lay it out this way. A seemingly insane tyrant has come to power. Stop me if you've heard this one. He mocks your concerns as if to say you're stupid while openly lying to you. And now you're worried he'll round you up as a political dissident like Jews in Nazi Germany or the Japanese under FDR in the US. You're worried he'll start a war, crash the economy, engage in crony capitalism, and give himself, special favors, and use parts of the government to covertly persecute you because of your political affiliations, or apparently some people are concerned about airstrikes being called in on them. For some, this is how you're feeling right now. For the rest of you, this is how you were feeling for the last 8 years under Obama. For others, this is how you felt up until 8 years ago because of Bush. Are you seeing the pattern? And so I think there's also people coming back to prep, people that were prepping during Bush's years that are now coming back to it again. I don't know. Somebody's going to ask if one was a previous employer of mine. I have no idea. I don't know. But these are the brackish waters of the survival community in the midst of change in which a shithead is in power. And, well, if you're new and you don't know, I believe all of these people are shitheads, the ones that are in power. By their very nature, I believe anyone who wants or seeks that power is probably an immoral person. They want power over another person because they know a better way to live. Anyway, I'm not going to get on a political tirade here. The trouble for prepping is this. If you're prepping for a specific thing, you will fall out, and this journey will be for naught, because this is not how you prepare in a sensible way. So this is the way to prep all wrong from the wrong way. The right way to go about it is to begin by prepping for the right thing. So I would say go ahead and read 1984 or This Perfect Day or Brave New World and 1 Second After and Last Babylon and Lucifer's Hammers, and then begin on the zombie genre. But I would also say you would be just as well served by reading, probably better served actually, by reading Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book and taking a chill pill or chill smoke or chill drink, whatever blows your hair back and your skirt up. Your preparedness journey should be about basic insurance. Insurance against the likely things to happen first. Then the sort of likely things to happen. Then that may never happen, but revs me up kind of stuff. I'm not going to say that I don't prep for crazy stuff. I don't really prep for crazy stuff anymore, but I still prep. I guess some of the preps I get into these days are for crazy stuff because I'm out of the basic stuff. And that's the way you play your guitar on the MTV, kids. That is how you do it. That is how you make sure that getting into preparedness and the money and energy you're spending is actually useful to you. And what you're most likely going to find is that over a period of time of prepping, when the excitement wears off and whatever the thing that was revving you up, the Mayan apocalypse or the Trump apocalypse or Trump's squirrel hairdo or what Obama declaring martial law, whatever it is that's winding you up, will have passed. But you will have a reasonable, easy to use, easy to store, easy to live with system of preparing that makes sense and guards your life and your well-being and your family and your loved ones' well-being against the things that are actually probably going to happen. So what is the state of the prepper community? Hey, we got some new people coming in. Be nice and play well with others, kids. And I have something from Nav Jim that I would like to read y'all. I think it's a really good one. And for those of you that are new and don't know, Nav Jim is our resident old coot. He is an amazing old man. And he has insight and wisdom into all of these shenanigans far beyond my years, as he will attest to here in a second. But first, a quick message. And now for a quick break. Listeners, do you get at least $3 a month worth of value out of ITRH? We'd love to give you more. Visit itrh.net to find out about membership benefits. For starters, members get access to every episode ever produced and a monthly virtual conference. That's just for starters. And it's important to know, In the Rabbit Hole is supported nearly entirely by roving Horde Armada members, just like you. That's how we pay the bills, stay on the air, keep the lights on around here. So go to itrh.net to learn how you can become part of the ITRH Roving Horde Armada. Next up, subscribe to the show through your favorite podcast app to make sure you never miss an episode by going to intherabbithole.com/iTunes or intherabbithole.com/Stitcher or intherabbithole.com/iHeartRadio or intherabbithole.com/Google Play. Or if you are one of those weirdos who listen to the show through YouTube, you can go to intherabbithole.com/YouTube because you know what? We support weirdos. However weird you want to be, we're all about that. Now, back to the show. I can't remember when I found ITRH, but it's been a number of years. Jonathan was still co-hosting. I have had the enjoyment of watching it grow and get better each year. I just read that ITRH has nearly 50,000 preppers listening each month, yet somehow it still feels like a bunch of friends getting together. It still stands for a common sense approach to prepping that most likely attracted you like it did me. And 200 episodes. I've been in production for many years, and never have I come close to 200 episodes of any show I've worked on. That's a big deal. One of my favorite shows, the long-running Big Bang Theory, has only done 212 episodes. Congrats, Aaron. Thank you. Thank you, Nav Jim. Anyway, to get to the point, one of the episodes I listened to got me thinking about how much the internet and social media has changed prepping in just the past 10 to 15 years. For those that don't know, I consider myself the official resident ITRH Old Coot. I think I am the oldest member. I know I'm the grumpiest. I have been prepping off and on since October 1962. The reason I can remember the exact date is that October 1962 is the date of the Cuban Missile Crisis. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It is the closest the US and the USSR ever came to nuclear war. The reason it affected me and my family so much was because we lived in Orlando, Florida, which is just 380 miles from Havana, Cuba. I was about 14 years old and scared shitless. We thought that the bombs would start falling at any minute. We had bomb drills at school, duck and cover, where we got under our desks like that would protect us from an A-bomb blast. Anyway, it ended up that the Ruskies backed down and they pulled the missiles out of Cuba. But it put a bug under my dad's saddle. And being a construction worker, he decided to build a state-of-the-art bomb shelter in our backyard. He ordered plans from the US government and built a shelter that could hold 12 people. That was our extended family, ours and my uncle's. This sucker had it all. It had a hand crank air filter, a periscope made out of an old tank periscope. It was steel reinforced concrete 4 feet underground. It was a steel blast door of an old Navy ship and concrete steps with a 90-degree turn at the bottom to get into the shelter. Seems radiation can't turn corners, so the turn was to protect folks in the shelter when the door was opened. Getting back to the point, back then, and up till the early 90s, when the Cold War ended, nuclear war was the main thing us survivalists worried about. Most of our preps were World War II and Korean War surplus. Food consisted basically of sea rations. We also could get shelter rations and canned water that was stocked in public bomb shelters by civil defense. There were some protein powders and other powdered and dried stuff made for the purpose, but they tasted like crap. We were called nuke nuts, and many of the names still used today. Then, somewhere in the 90s, the term prepper became popular. I think it was an attempt to shed the bad image of the survivalist that somehow became synonymous with anti-government or crazy hermit. It worked for a while, but doomsday preppers screwed that up. From 1962 to around mid-1990s, not much changed in the prepper world. If you did meet another survivalist, they were most likely to be of the same mindset as you. Everyone sort of did it the same way. Starting in the mid to late 60s, there was a back to basics movement where people wanted to get out of the rat race and live like they did a century earlier. And the hippie movements that believed in farming and growing their own food in a commune. And at some point, they cross-pollinated each other, and we ended up with the homesteader prepper. Then, shortly after 2000, the internet allowed preppers, survivalists, homesteaders, combat preppers, and every other kind of prepper you can name to talk with each other in an anonymous platform. At first, it was a bulletin board on dial-up internet. That is when prepping started to explode. To me, 2000 sounds like yesterday, but you have to remember Mark Zuckerberg launched his college roommate's website, Facebook, on February 4th, 2004. Today, if you go on most prepper pages, there are dozens of them and hundreds of websites. You'll see homesteader preppers, hoarder preppers, the self-defense prepper, the kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out, military combat prepper, tactical prepper, the I'm gonna take your stuff prepper, the wilderness prepper, the doomsday prepper, the religious preppers, the no firearms preppers, the zombie apocalypse preppers, the frontiersman prepper, the bug out prepper, the bug in prepper, the conspiracy theorist prepper, the farmer prepper, the hippie prepper, the extremist prepper, the primitive skills prepper, and any other type of prepper you can think of fighting it out for who's right and who knows the best way to prep. There are male and female preppers. There are even preppers in many different countries. They are all talking to each other. And most of this has happened in the last 17 years. Where do we go from here? Is there a high-tech prepper that has force field armor and shoots phased rifles in our future? Will there be virtual prepper websites where you can interact with each other's avatars? Show notes, links, and resources can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E204. And you know what? If you are listening through a podcast player such as a iPhone or something like that, you're looking at the album art right now and you touch it, it will flip over and that link will be right there in front of you. It'll be awesome. And you know what? When you go to the show notes and you use our links to go to things mentioned in this episode, like all the books that I called out, you get a little something back from Amazon. It doesn't cost you anymore, and it helps us out just a little bit. But you know what? The best way to help us out is to become part of the I2RH Roving Horde Armada at I2RH.net. Remember, that is the best way to support the show and get great membership benefits. Again, by going to I2RH.net. The show is supported nearly entirely by listeners just like you. One more time, that's I2RH.net to find out how you can become part of the Roving Horde Armada. With that, we wrap up episode number 204 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.